What your dog thinks when you call their name. You're in the kitchen. Your dog is somewhere in the other room. You say their name. Not a command, not a warning. Just their name, the way you always say it. And before the second syllable is finished, they're already moving. Not because they're obedient, not because they're trained, because something just happened in their brain that has no real equivalent in any other animal on Earth. Most people assume their dog knows its name the way a person does. A label, an identity, something that belongs to them. But when researchers put dogs in brain scanners and started playing recordings of their own names versus unfamiliar words, what they found was something more complicated and more interesting than simple recognition. In 2016, Attila Andix and his team at Eötvös Loránd University in Budapest trained 13 dogs to lie still inside an fMRI scanner, no sedation, no restraint, and played them recordings of familiar and unfamiliar words in praising and neutral tones. The finding that changed everything. Dogs processed familiar, meaningful words with a left hemisphere bias. The same lateralization humans use for language. Their brains weren't just reacting to a sound, they were parsing it. And the reward regions only fired at full strength when both the word and the tone carried positive meaning at the same time. Your dog's name, said in your voice, is a compound signal. The word, the tone, and the identity of the speaker are all processed together. And only together do they produce the full neurological response. A praising tone with a meaningless word produced partial activation. A meaningful word in a flat tone produced partial activation. Only the combination, your warmth, your word, aimed at them, lit up the reward circuit completely. You aren't just getting their attention. You are, neurologically speaking, delivering a reward before anything else has even happened. There's a layer underneath this that almost nobody talks about, and it goes to the question of why the name activates that reward circuit so reliably. In 2015, neuroscientist Gregory Berns and his team at Emory University measured which stimuli most strongly activated the caudate nucleus, the brain's reward and anticipation center, across 12 dogs. They tested 5 categories of scent: the dog's own, a familiar dog's, a stranger humans, and the owner's. The results were unambiguous. The familiar human's scent produced the strongest activation of all 5. Stronger than food, stronger than other dogs. And what a name does, above all else, is announce presence. It says, I am here. I am looking for you specifically. When your dog hears their name in your voice, the brain doesn't process it as a neutral label. It processes it as the beginning of contact. Out of everything happening in the environment right now, you are directing your attention at them. A 2020 meta-analysis reviewing over 50 years of dog-human communication research found that domestic dogs outperform not only wolves, but also chimpanzees and human-raised great apes in their ability to orient toward and interpret human-directed cues. The gap isn't small, it's structural, and the name, delivered with genuine intent, is one of the most reliable triggers of that response known to researchers. That's not training. That's something older. In 2017, a team at Princeton identified structural variants in 2 genes found in domestic dogs, GTF2I and GTF2IRD1. What makes them remarkable isn't only what they do in dogs. In humans, deletions in this same genetic region cause Williams-Beuren syndrome, extreme sociability, a compulsive drive to approach and connect with others, and a near complete absence of social wariness. It is, in clinical terms, a genetic predisposition to human connection. Wolves don't carry these variants. Every domestic dog does. The pull your dog feels toward you when you say their name is written into them at a level that precedes any individual relationship, any training, any particular history between you. But here's where the science gets personal. Those genetic findings explain why dogs, as a species, orient toward humans. They don't explain why your dog turns for you the way they do. That part accumulates over time. Every time you have used their name, something followed. Sometimes food, sometimes just eye contact held a moment longer. Sometimes simply the fact that you were looking for them, and they were the one you found. A 2019 study tracking hormonal responses in 58 dogs found that familiar owner contact elevated oxytocin by an average of 57% compared to baseline. Stranger contact produced no significant change at all. The hormone doesn't respond to warm human behavior in general. It responds to you, the person whose presence the dog's nervous system has learned over months and years to anticipate. Your name, in your voice, is the first moment of that anticipation firing. If you're finding this as fascinating as we do, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Every week we go deeper into the psychology behind your dog's behavior. This is also why tone matters as much as the research says it does. In 2018, researchers at the University of York played 37 adult dogs recordings of dog-directed speech with dog-relevant words, the same warm tone with irrelevant content, and normal speech with relevant words. Dogs moved toward the speaker and spent more time near them in only one condition: when the warm register was paired with words that genuinely referred to things that mattered to them. The prosody is real, but it isn't enough on its own. A voice performing warmth without genuine intent doesn't produce the same result as one that is actually directed at the dog with care. A 2022 study at the Clever Dog Lab in Vienna found that dogs could distinguish between speech directed at them and speech directed at another person in the same room, even when the words and tone were nearly identical, with an accuracy rate of 74%. When they correctly identified that the speech was meant for them, heart rate increased measurably within 1.8 seconds of the first syllable. They know, before you finish the word, whether you mean it for them. Which is why the way you use the name matters more than most people realize. If their name has been used most often in moments of correction, if the word that announces you has come to predict tension, interruption, or the end of something enjoyable, the activation changes. The dog still orients because the learning is deep, but something in them is braced for what comes next. A 2020 study in Applied Animal Behavior Science, drawing on data from 92 dogs trained using either reward-based or punishment-based methods, found that dogs in the punishment-trained group showed elevated cortisol not just during training, but during ordinary daily contact with their owners. The stress had generalized, and in behavioral testing conducted outside the training context entirely, these same dogs showed a measurably pessimistic cognitive bias, a tendency to interpret ambiguous situations negatively. The stress was leaking into everything. Behavioral researchers are consistent on this. The name should predict only good things. If you need to interrupt or redirect, use other words. Save the name for moments where what follows is genuinely worth turning toward, because what their name represents, when it's been used with care, is not a conditioned stimulus. It's a promise that has been kept hundreds and hundreds of times. In 2023, researchers at the University of Padua used EEG recordings, small sensors placed non-invasively on the scalps of 24 awake dogs, to capture what happened in the brain in the 400 milliseconds immediately after a familiar person said their name. They found the N400 component, a brainwave pattern that in humans is considered one of the neural signatures of semantic comprehension. The brain recognizing that a meaningful word has been processed in context. The dogs produced it too. Within 400 milliseconds, in the brain of an animal that cannot speak or write, a signal appeared that neuroscientists associate with the processing of meaningful language. The brain knew it had been called, not just alerted, called. So the next time they come running before you've even finished the word, ears lifted, body already in motion, eyes finding yours as soon as they round the corner, understand what has actually just happened. Their left hemisphere parsed a familiar word. Their caudate nucleus fired on the anticipation of the person it has learned, over months and years, to associate with safety and reward. Their oxytocin system primed. Their heart rate elevated within 2 seconds of the first syllable. And in the electrical activity of their brain, a signal appeared that researchers recognize as the mark of meaningful comprehension. All of that in less time than it takes you to say their name. They are not simply responding to a call. They are responding to an entire relationship, compressed, through thousands of repetitions of care, into a single sound. And what they expect when they arrive is what every scan, every study, every measure science has brought to bear on this question confirms. They expect you. And in that moment, you are, to every part of their brain that can be mapped, exactly enough. If this changed the way you see your dog, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment below. Which name does your dog respond to fastest? Their full name or the nickname you only use at home? We'll see you in the next one.